Has the honeymoon with Doug Pederson ended already here in Jacksonville? I'll tell you why the answer is yes. In just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, y'all? Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder, we are free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. That is Locked On Jaguars. Make your way over to Locked On Jaguars YouTube page, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, of course, and then the bell. The bell means you'll get notifications each and every time we drop an episode. And if you listen to audio podcast, whatever platform you do that on, make sure you tap in every single day so you don't miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. All right, get some housekeeping out of the way. I've been away for a couple of days. It wasn't by design. Your boy had to step away and take care of himself, but I'm glad you guys are tuned in. Y'all been looking at the other episodes and can't keep me away, can't keep me down. I'm back and things have settled down a little bit since Mike Caldwell has gotten fired. I thought they would, but obviously they haven't. I'll tell you exactly how I feel about those things today. I'm going to talk about Doug Pederson being on a hot seat. It's a little bit ridiculous, but I kind of understand it. There's a part of this I like and a part of this I don't. I'll tell you about that. We're going to talk about Trent Baalke. I'll make a statement right now. They will never win a championship with Trent Baalke as the GM. He is the number one football guy in the building. And with him being in that capacity, they would have to get extremely lucky. And even if they got lucky, it wouldn't last. It wouldn't be sustainable. So that's why I think he's the wrong person for the job. And then I'll tell you in segment 3 why it does not make sense for me to do a mock draft and post it. I've been running through it a little bit just to see where guys are going to fall. And even, you know, those machines aren't right because on draft night, everything always goes a whole nother way in a whole nother direction. But I don't do it because it doesn't make any sense to do it before free agency, and free agency comes first. So I won't be posting any of that stuff, and I'll tell you why. I'm not knocking anybody else that does it, but I just can't do it. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's just kind of a waste of time. Unless you're going to do free agency in front of it. Do free agency and then do the mock draft. That's a real good idea. So we'll talk about that too. But Doug Pederson was when he was brought in, everyone said, including myself, that it was competence, that it was a proven winner, a Super Bowl winning coach. I still believe that because I believe winning a Super Bowl in the NFL is very hard. It took Andy Reid forever, and he was one of the 3 best coaches in the league, and it took him a long, long time to get to that point. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do, right? There are organizations that have never won a Super Bowl. And because he did it, and he did it in a city where the fans are crazy and the expectations and the media attention is really, really high, I felt that he could do it when he got here eventually. I still feel that way. I do. But a little bit of it is I understand why fans don't feel that way. Messaging is super, super important. And I think what has happened with Doug Pederson is he's been nice to everybody. When he talks about, he's nice to his players. He's very complimentary when he talks about those players. He speaks well about the coaches, and I can respect that because there's no reason for someone to denigrate or downplay somebody to the public. Usually, the only reason you do that kind of stuff is to make yourself look better. And to point fingers and blame other people. Doug has always said, we need to do better. We need to do this, or we can't do this, or we can't do that. And this guy has to get better, and this guy has to get better. What happens is with the fans and the media, some people, a lot of times when things don't go your way, like an epic going from 8-3 to 9-7, missing the playoffs and losing your last 2 games to Tampa and Tennessee. Yeah, that doesn't feel real good, right? Or losing 2 of your last 3 games to Tampa and Tennessee. It doesn't feel real good. So people want their pound of flesh. Doug just not going to give it to you. He's not going to give you your pound of flesh. Everybody's main pound of flesh is Press Taylor. I want to ask you a question. What if he's right about Press Taylor? Really? What if he's right about him? And what if, and you might be right, he's not about him. But what if this isn't about, and the narrative exists that, well, he's just trying to protect his buddy, or he doesn't want to prove that he made a bad decision, or he doesn't want his protege to be the guy, be the fall guy. All of this stuff, that stuff takes on a life of its own, and it just might not be true. Doug Pederson just might not want a guy in a suit telling him who the hell is going to be on his staff. And that would be like 99% of the coaches. You're not telling me who to fire. I'll let you fire me before you tell me who to hire and who to fire as my coaches. That's the way coaches think. So this might not be a situation where he's just covering for his guy the way you cover for your kid. What if what if Press Taylor's doing every single thing Pederson told him to do, how to do it, and it doesn't work for whatever reason? Maybe it's because of the offensive line, maybe because of the quarterback, or maybe it's because of this or that. See, the sample size is this. It worked like a son of a gun when he had Frank Reich and when he had Press Taylor on his staff, and they scored 41 points against Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl. So I look at this and I go, who should I listen to? Should I listen to that guy? Or should I listen to Trent Baalke? Or should I listen to fans? Or should I listen to media people that, I mean, what has Jacksonville won? That's the point. The point is this isn't, I don't think this is as much about him protecting his guy or someone he looks at like a son. And look, plagiarism exists and all of that stuff. And they're not related. But what if he does think that Press is a really good coach? And a lot of other people did too, because last year he had to block, the Jaguars blocked people from interviewing Press Taylor. Why would they do that? I'll tell you why they do it. Because they had just gotten this team. You want more continuity than that. You don't want to get rid of one of your coaches after one good season. That's common sense. But I've just thought that maybe this isn't about protecting his guy or saving ego. Maybe it's just like this. Maybe Doug Pederson, and he could be wrong, but maybe he's looking at Press Taylor. He's saying he's doing a good job. He said it the other day in his press conference. He did a nice job. Almost as if, since y'all so smart, really take a deep look. Take a deep look at what is really going on and tell me that's Press's fault. See, if fans were more forgiving of the play caller than they are the quarterback, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. I saw a play today where Evan Ingram dropped the ball, hit him in the hands, boom, he took his eyes off of it, and Tennessee picked it off. People are quick to say that's not Trevor's fault, but nobody's quick to say, well, that's not Press's fault. When Trevor overthrows people, when he throws interceptions, is that Press's fault too? Well, we could say, well, the communication is off, but what if Press has told him 10, 12 times and he just doesn't get it? And Doug took a deep breath when he was asked about Trevor the other day. Could it be that the Prince that was just isn't as good as y'all think he is? Could it be? Wouldn't be the first time that happened, y'all. Wouldn't be the first time that happened. It's like I said, it's like telling an 8-year-old kid that Santa Claus doesn't exist. It could very well be the case. And that they have to dial it back a little bit. And I listen to the media ask questions, say, did you put too much on his plate? What the hell are you talking about? If he's a franchise quarterback, how is it possible for me to put too much on his plate? I just don't get it. And Doug even laughed and go, what are you talking about? Put too much. He's your quarterback. What else? Press Taylor has said they have tailored this offense around Trevor Lawrence. If you're going to blame somebody, you need to blame the GM, Trent Baalke, for not getting the extra parts to make those plays better. That's what you need to do. Trent Baalke is the true problem for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It ain't Doug Pederson. I'm going to get to Trent Baalke in the second segment, but I'm going to tease you with this, because at the top of the second segment, I'm going to talk about this. One, folks saying, I heard somebody say that they would entertain Bill Belichick because the rumor came out that Belichick is looking, there's a mystery team involved. It ain't the Jaguars. I think it's the Dallas Cowboys. but because there wouldn't have to be a mystery team involved that hadn't fired their coach, because all the Jaguars got to do is fire their coach if they wanted to hire Bill Belichick. And we act like those last 3 or 4 years in New England don't mean anything. We're just thinking about the 20 years before that, right? The other thing is, and this is something that I want everyone to sort of ponder a little bit, and that is this. Why have we deitized Trevor Lawrence? Why don't they do this to young quarterbacks, especially in a market where you're not used to having a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady or Drew Brees or a Brett Favre, I would say Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, why have we deitized him after the first 3 years in the NFL for what you've seen? Why would you even ask Trevor Lawrence about the direction of the team? Why would you run stuff through a 24-year-old who hasn't really shown enough consistency for you to do that? I'm going to talk about all of that stuff here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. Got to let y'all know about the Gametime app. That's right. Gametime is the absolute truth, man. When you want to buy some tickets to an event and you have not done your due diligence and it's the last minute, well, don't worry about it, because guess what? Gametime is right there for you and they will handle it for you. Most of the time you hear stuff like your lack of attention to something is not an emergency on my part, right? You don't hear that from Gametime, because I'm telling you right now, they don't think that way. In fact, they love the fact that you waited until the last minute, because that's what they specialize in. There's nothing like Gametime that can help you get tickets to any event, sports, theater, whatever it is, and they do it at the last minute and they're happy. So what you need to do is download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and the redeem code, which is locked on, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. I got on something right before we took a pause for the cause real quick, and that is this thought that and people were doing this as a rookie, man. And this is not a slap on Trevor Lawrence. I don't want people to think that's what it is, right? There's more realistic, but it's not a slap on Trevor Lawrence. I got kids. I got 5 kids, right? The youngest is 26. I don't ask them about stuff. I ask them about them. You think I'm going to ask them about how to run my business or run my life? And I know it's not apples to apples, what I'm saying here, but it amazes me how starstruck some people get, whether you're fans or media, and you deitize someone just because of your fandom or because of high school rankings, college rankings, the fact that people have been saying that since this kid was a high school senior or a freshman in college, that he is the next coming of whatever, right? Like he's the Mount Rushmore. All of that's cool. We have learned over the years that none of that means a hill of beans when it comes to the National Football League. That is a man's league, and only the true alphas end up showing up and showing out, right? And being the guy that you go to at some point in their career and you go, hey, what do we need to do? I'm talking about Super Bowl champion, all pro, all of that stuff. But at some point, I don't know if it's the social media era, but some point everyone started to think that, well, when you get a guy that you think is a franchise quarterback, you automatically have to treat him the way you would a guy who has proven to be a franchise quarterback and who's won. How about try this on for size? Remember I used to tell y'all that Trevor, they needed to stop in year 1 when the whole Urban Meyer stuff, and I said that they keep running Trevor. Trevor was interviewing after more than anything, and to me it was just like, just keep him happy, keep him quiet. You know what I'm saying? Almost like an overseer when it came to the fans and the media. And at some point he refused to do an interview because I remember vividly, I can't remember what it was. It might have had something to do with the running backs coach or something. And Trevor, he said, I ain't doing it. I'm not going out there, right? I get it. I get all of that. And he was right. But when I say that they shouldn't use him that way as a PR guy, I also don't think that you need to be using him as like the senior executive vice president of the team either. He's 24 years old, man. Let him go play beer pong or ride jet skis or do whatever those guys do with each other. He needs to be with his teammates. Don't make this an RG3 in Washington situation where he had a beeline to the office, or don't make this Russell Wilson situation where he had his own office and you separated him from the team. He needs to be one of the guys. He needs to be a quarterback. If I meet with Trevor Lawrence about anything, I just say, hey man, an exit meeting, what do you got going on? What do you think will help you, and how can we help you? Or you take his answers, and then this is what I tell him. All right, we need you to work on turnovers. We need you to stop throwing the ball over people's head early in the game, and just relax. I think they need to be giving Trevor advice. I don't think they need to be taking advice from a 24-year-old who hasn't proven a whole bunch in the National Football League. But thus is this, and this is Trent Baalke. Trent Baalke is like the number one football guy in the building. Now listen to me. You heard what I said. Shad Khan's the owner of the team. Shad don't know football like the other people in the building. Doug Pederson is the head coach. Trent Baalke is the general manager, and they're not the only team structured like this, but they're the only team structured like this with that guy in charge. Another guy who does not have a track record of galvanizing people, drafting well. He just doesn't. So the bottom line is, when you have a guy like that as the number one person in the franchise, you get stuff like what I just mentioned. We're going to talk to Trevor and see what Trevor needs. And then the media buys off on that BS and starts quoting it. And like I say, anything can sound good when you tweet it, post it, or whatever, or say it on a radio show. But does it practically make any sense? Absolutely not. I'm not asking him for permission to do anything. I'm not asking him his advice on pro personnel, and I'm just asking him to stop throwing interceptions. That's it. I don't know what else. I can't say it any better. This deitizing of Trevor Lawrence has hurt him, and I don't think what he has done. I think he's grabbed it a little bit, but I don't think it's because of ego. I think it's because when you put him in that position, a kid like that who's a good person looks at it as a responsibility. So therefore, he takes on the added responsibility of being that guy, which in my opinion probably takes away from the football stuff that he should be focusing on, or it probably takes away from him just being a 24-year-old and coming to the games sort of carefree. I think you add that responsibility on him. So people and this is the funniest thing, people ask Doug, are you putting too much on his plate? But then they suggest that somehow you make him the de facto senior vice president of football operations and run everything through him. No, y'all are putting too much on him. We just want him to be a football player. That's it. Everything sounds good until you realize it doesn't make sense. Trent Baalke will never lead any organization as the head to a championship. Mark my word. And if he does, I'll apologize. And I'll admit that I was wrong. Now we got people out here saying that, if Belichick is out there, maybe the Jaguars are the mystery team that everyone's talking about, and bring Bill Belichick in and they'd fire Doug Pederson because Belichick is the greatest ever. He's 72 years old. In 3 years, you'll be looking for another coach. You say Belichick's going to come show how it's done and get some credibility in here. Yeah, well, the dude that you'll fire to do that can tell you, look you dead in your face and say, well, I beat him in a game that counted. I beat him in the game that counted. I did something a lot of people didn't do. Just make it make sense, man. Make it all make sense. By being away for a couple of days, I kind of was reading and listening to a lot of stuff. And see, this is what losing does, though. And they have a winning record. Doug Pederson is 19 and 17 over 2 years. It ain't great, but compared to what it used to be, it's better. And I'm not that compared to what it used to be guy. I don't like doing that too much, but I still think that maybe we're looking at the wrong direction. I think we misdiagnosed. And if you're using Trent Baalke to be the person to figure out the problems for this team, I feel sorry for you, because he is not the problem figure outer. And you can figure that out. And you know exactly what I mean. If he's the guy you got figured out your problems, then I think you have a long way to go. You don't have to go a long way to figure out that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, man. So what we're going to do in the third and final segment is we're going to polish this up a little bit. And then I'm going to tell you why I don't like doing mock drafts at this time of the season. Tell you all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man. Jase Medical. You know it is all about Jase Medical. And it should be. I've had enough bouts and battles with all of my ailments that you guys have heard about. I try to be as transparent as I can because I want y'all to take care of yourself, right? Well, Jase Medical is the absolute truth, and Jase Medical will give you a chance to be able to take care of yourself. And what it is, you can get a Jase case, man, and that has a whole bunch of pertinent antibiotics. There's a whole bunch of things that you just need every single time you start feeling a little bit under the weather, especially during storm season, man. Storm season is absolute horrible for a lot of people. Flu season is going around, and pharmacies are running out of stuff, antibiotics like amoxicillin, right in the middle of the worst flu season in a decade. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. Look, man, Jase Case is a 5-pack of different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, and among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Ding, ding, I raise my hand. It's never been more important to prepare than today. Go to Jase Medical, Jase medical.com, and use the offer code Locked On to get $20 off your order. That's Jase Medical, JaseMedical.com, and use the code Locked On to get $20 off your first order. Third, final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Listen here, man. Stepping back away from it a little bit, the firing of Dave Caldwell. The Jags have gotten rebuffed by Atlanta and I think Chicago. They were going to interview, not Chicago, Atlanta, and I'll tell you in just a second. But the two teams have denied them to talk to their assistant coach. Atlanta and Carolina have both denied Jacksonville the chance to talk to their defensive coordinators. Real quick, a lot of people are looking at the pictures of the coaches that got fired, and they're just assuming that all the black coaches got fired. And just be very careful when you do that kind of stuff and you accuse people of that kind of stuff, because if they go and hire black coaches to replace black coaches, then you look like an idiot, right? It's what happened in Houston. Houston fired a black coach after 1 year, then hired another black coach. Fired him after 1 year, and people wanted to scream racism, and then they hired another black coach, and he's the coach of the year. Just you don't have to be first. If stuff like that exists, it'll come to light, but sometimes you got to pause a little bit. Everybody's doing mock drafts right now. I don't know how you can do mock drafts. I've done them, but I'm not posting them. And the reason why I'm not posting them is because I don't know what they're going to do in free agency. If you think the Jaguars are going to do the same thing that they did last year in free agency, then you might as well go and do a mock draft, because they didn't do anything in free agency. Might be the biggest mistake, the most egregious thing that Trent Baalke could have ever done. And this is what I don't understand why he's not having to answer for that, or if he has to answer for that. Why did they stand pat last year? I know we all talked about it. A lot of people looked at it from the point, and this is the other thing that I tell people about being loud about. The pass rushers. Well, if you question Trent about that now, he'll look and say, we got 27 and a half sacks from our two starters. So you give him an out. But we're talking about pass rush depth. But before this team can even get into depth, they have problems at starting positions. I told y'all ad nauseum about the interior of the defensive and offensive lines. Did I not? Did I not tell y'all about that nickel position? Did I not? Did I not tell y'all they needed a wide receiver? And I'm not the first person to say that, because after the 2022 season, I think John Shipley said that they needed a big number one target wide receiver. Shout out to John Shipley of SI. I think he said it too. I thought they needed a seam-eating tight end. Evan Ingram has 198 catches this year for like 900 yards, but still, they don't eat up the middle of the field. When you watch this offense is all on the outside. Everything is on the outside. Nothing is down the middle. Nothing is in the seam. They don't force teams, in my opinion, to play the whole field. So how can you go into free agency without understanding? Well, how can you go and do a mock draft without understanding what they will or won't do in free agency? I think Doug even hinted the other day that they're going to be new faces. They have better cap situation now. The problem is, you go back to segment 2, I don't trust Trent. So if I don't trust Trent, I don't trust anything that they're going to do. So you won't get a mock draft from me that I'll actually post until we see what they'll do in free agency. And 9 times out of 10, they're not going to do what any of us want them to do in free agency. I haven't been right on one free agent since Trent Baalke took over this team. Not one. I haven't been right on one player. They didn't go anywhere. What do they need? Interior defensive lineman. Who's out there? Chris Jones and that kid in Baltimore, Justin Madubuike. I think that's how you say his name. For me, I still go after Chris Jones, even though he's 3 years older. I don't care. He's 30. He'll be 30. Chris Jones is going to play till he's 33, 34 years old. I'm starting to look at this now. I'm not looking at team building from a 5-year perspective. I'm looking at a 3-year perspective. I draft Chris Jones and still come back and double back in the 2nd or 3rd round and get me a defensive tackle that has some of those same traits. By the way, Chris Jones was a 2nd-round pick. I get somebody just like that and I groom him. And then I do what Baltimore does. Baltimore, we talk about Justin Madubuike. Baltimore did the same thing. They did the same thing. And look, they never miss. It seems like there's certain teams that don't have to regroup, recover, or go out in free agency because they draft and develop. But that's what I do. So if you want to do some free agency, I get Steve Nelson from Houston and make him my nickel, even though he's about 30. Don't care. He can play till he's 33. I don't know if y'all seen some of these 33-year-olds. Now that I've gotten older, those 33-year-olds look like they're 20, right? I go after Chris Jones's teammate, L'Jarius Sneed. So what does that mean? What are you saying, Wig? You saying that you wouldn't keep one of those 2 corners? That's exactly what I'm telling you. Even though they haven't been the problem, but they haven't been the solution. And a lot of times when we look at these things, we look at the guys that aren't really the problem. Yeah, but are they a part of what can fix it? Are they good enough to fix it? Are they upgrades? I just kind of look at the NFL the way we look at college, man. Or, you can't just go around and giving everybody a whole bunch of money, but you got to be realistic when you look at these teams. You got to, can I win a championship with him? If you don't have dudes behind the guys that's playing that think they should be starting somewhere else, then your team ain't built. Not to win a title. Guys should, I'm not talking about acting out and all of that stuff. No, I'm just thinking that. So, for instance, like if you look at the Dallas Cowboys pass rush, Dorrance Armstrong doesn't start. Dorrance Armstrong would start for about 18 teams in this league. Dallas has done it over the years with their offensive line, right? They've had the 6th or the 7th guy on their offensive line end up getting a big free agent contract somewhere. There are just some teams that do that very well. They stack players at certain positions. Trent Baalke ain't going to ever have Jacksonville be one of those teams that stack players at look at the Jaguars roster. Is there somebody on the Jaguars roster after 3 years that should be saying that they should be starting somewhere else? Think about it. Are they? Just think. No, it's not. So you won't get a mock from me until free agency. The only mock you'll get from me is maybe if they do this in free agency, then they come back this way. But you just won't you won't see me posting just a mock draft without considering free agency first. You guys need to consider yourselves lucky that you can go to Locked On because they've launched the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, man, y'all have a good weekend, and I'll try to do the same. We'll see you guys Monday. If there's any coaching news, we'll do an emergency pod this weekend if they hire a defensive coordinator. If not, we'll see you. You guys make sure you take care of each other. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.